On Amtrak, you can spend more time relaxing and enjoying the ride and less time cursing under your breath in traffic. Whether you're going on a quick trip or up and down the Northeast, we'll make sure you do it in comfort. With no middle seat and plenty of legroom, stretch out without ever stressing out. Book a traffic-free getaway at Amtrak.com. Amtrak. Retrain travel.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the podcast in which we obsess with the details in punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, metal, whatever subgenre you're talking about that is of the independent variety. That is what we care about here at the show. And I know I say the same thing every week, but that's because not everybody tunes in to every single episode. So you got to remind people the thesis statement of this show. And this week, of course, is no exception to that rule. We have Dave Collis from the band Slow Mass from Chicago. And I realize Slow Mass may not be like the biggest band around, but they are well worth your time. And Dave is a very interesting dude because he booked shows for years, has played in bands for many, many years, and Slow Mass is an incredible band. They put out a record last year called Low on Foot, and as I reveal in the interview and discuss about this band, like Slow Mass was always kind of on my radar, but never really sunk in. And I really love those moments in which you listen to a band's record, and whether it's the second, third, fourth, or 100th time you've listened to the record, it all of a sudden starts to sink its teeth into it. I really personally enjoy that moment, and I try to identify when that actually turns for me. And I spoke to Dave about it. But anyways, if you like anything that is like post-rock, that is, angular post-hardcore stuff, you will love Slow Mass. And they have, I'm going to compare them to a band like Greet Death, just has a lot of different interesting influences. And you just need to listen to Slow Mass. But ultimately, Dave was a great chat. We discussed a lot of different things and, had a lot of fun with it because he has enacted some interesting ideas for his band and creativity in general. And we talk about booking Ethel Cain's first show. Oh my gosh, that's rad. Or first Chicago show, I guess you would say. Anyways, let's talk about the ways you can support the show. You can email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I receive all feedback and emails and guest ideas. All that stuff is very appreciated. I genuinely do read every single one of them, and I do my best to respond to them, even if you are just pitching your band or, you run a record label or whatever. Sometimes the timing isn't right. But yeah, I really do appreciate you finding that this vehicle for expression is a worthwhile endeavor for you to try to pursue. Anyways, that was a lot of words there, but ultimately I appreciate you caring about the show. Also, huge shout out to Eugene Kim for making the new theme song, and he's done the music for the show for the better part of 5-6 years or so. So I tasked him to do a new intro and outro music, and he did, and it was great. So huge shout out to him. Thank you very much. And if you want to support the show in other ways, you can leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page or simply leave a rating on Spotify. All of those things help the people who need to find out about this show find out about it hopefully quicker. Maybe they're just discovering podcasts for the first time. Who knows? And this has kind of been going on for the better part of 10 plus years, so I don't expect people to dive back in the archives. But if you do, welcome. And if it's your first time, welcome as well. Let's talk about weekly recommendations as well. This is a segment in the show in which I talk about records, new, old, everything in between, stuff that is well worth your time, because after all, we really like to have people recommending stuff to us to check out, because there's a lot of things out there. And hopefully this playlist serves its purpose in introducing you to music that you might have missed or not checked out in the first place. And there is a link in the show notes for you to hop into an Apple Music or a Spotify playlist where you can consume all of the recommendations. And then hopefully you just follow along and you just dip in every so often and hopefully find some new music. The recommendation this week is from a band called L. The record is called She. This got keyed into me via the guitarist of my band, Taken. His name's Eric. Love him to death. He's got a great music taste and ear. He messaged me and said, "Hey, have you heard this band, L? They released a record called She." I was like, "Nope, news to me." And come to find out, Jack Shirley of the recording fame, and he also played Comadre, and he's been a very active part in punk and hardcore and DIY up in Northern California. He recorded this project, and it's members of Bon Iver, like not Bon Iver from in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, but Beau Navier. It's like BAU. You get it. This record came out in 2018 on Conditions Records, and this thing blew me away. This was like more muted version of what, Bon Iver, Screamo stuff is going on, but it still has the urgency of it. And it's just a beautiful record. I love it so much. And I just love when I find these things because people are like, "Hey, have you heard this thing?" And then you listen to it and you're like, "My God, no, I haven't. And now I will for a lot." And that's exactly what this record was. So the record is from a band called L-E-L-L-E, and the record is called She. So hop into that playlist and listen to it and check it out. And maybe if you find it on vinyl, let me know because I want it. Anyways, like I said, Dave from Slow Mass is on the show, released a great record last year, and let's talk to him right now.
Once a winner, once a winner, all facts are spinning out of focus. Once a sinner, once a
Slow Mass exists as a band and I'm using this as kind of like a generic entry point for most bands where people are kind of like, "Oh, like I've heard of the band's name. I keep meaning to check it out, but I haven't listened to it for one reason or another." And I was actually trying to, in my own brain, sort through why I never like actively listened to you guys when you were releasing music, 2018, 2019, where the idea of a collective, quote unquote, air quotes, where it's like, oh, band members are fluid. They can kind of come in and out, all that sort of stuff. It makes, old people like me not confused, but just being like, "Oh, I don't know if there's a through line that I can pay attention to." Like,
Interesting.
will the band be consistent enough for me to like, if I like one record, will it be like a drastic departure on the next record or whatever? And I know I've heard the words like, member fluid, not thrown around for you guys, but just like,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, people have said that. But then for me, what really kind of revealed itself is when you effectively like releasing the record that you did, the most recent release that you did, it just became more clear to me where it was like, oh yes, even though it is been kind of a member fluid scenario, that it's like, oh yeah, this is the most concerted vision of what it is that Slow Mass is. So I realize there's a lot of preamble there, but just like, does the kind of like member fluid, like collective thing kind of resonate with you in regards to just the fact that you want to be working with people and creating music no matter what sort of form it takes?
Yeah. Good question. So I guess maybe I'll first like elaborate on why it became a collective, and that would probably make a little more sense. So when it started, it was just me and Sparks, the drummer, and then we brought in Parks, the guitarist, and then we brought in Mercedes. So like by mid 2015, we had the full lineup. It was only about a year and a half until early 2017 when Sparks got the offer to join Minus the Bear that we then found ourselves in a situation where we needed a new drummer. And we had only just released our first EP and, felt a little upset about like, things maybe being stunted or whatever, but it also kind of like taught a valuable lesson of just like, things happen and bands are bands and you got to like keep moving. So we had a different drummer, this guy David, who joined for about 2 years. And David was actually a professor at DePaul University here, or was in his like master's program at the time. So it was obviously a strain at various points with his schedule to make it work for doing a full-time band, that by the time we reached like the latter half of 2018, his interest in continuing to do the band at full-time speed dwindled as Minus the Bear was finishing up. So that's when Sparks rejoined, and kind of like around that point when we had the change up again, we had already had our friend Evan, who's now a full-time member. He had done a tour filling in for our guitarist Parks, and we had just like found ourselves in this position of like, we are not 21, 22, where you have no bills, you don't pay health insurance, you don't have, 5 roommates in a house paying like $200 a month rent or whatever, like I used to, so it just became like very apparent that like at our age, me being like the youngest member of the band, that we couldn't be a full-time touring entity and people like be able to survive and pay their bills. So with that, and with having members swap in and out and things, the idea of a collective seemed like appealing because I don't know. I mean, there's various bands that I love, like Joan of Arc or like Self Defense Family, where there's like this fluidity to it, and as long as there's like a consistency in the product that's being put out, I think there's like a really exciting thing about like, oh, what is the lineup going to be this time? And like, if it was like a certain lineup sucked, then obviously that would be like a big bummer. But like, I saw Self Defense Family a handful of times, never the same lineup twice, always amazing. I saw Joan of Arc a variety of times during their existence in Chicago, with the lineup adjusting like from 3 members to like 6 at one point to whatever, and it was always like fantastic and unique and inspiring, that it truly drove like that being the through line to guide us as we like moved forward from whatever 2019 onward. Was just, I don't know, we're not a successful band. and I say that like not in like a self-defeatist way, but like fully aware of our size, and I'm fully aware of, like our music's commercial ability, that it's okay that it's that, and I'm happy with the reach that we have, and I'm very thankful for people who are interested in stuff, but I'm also like content knowing like there's certain ceilings that you hit and you have to figure out how to make it work within those ceilings. So yeah, that's kind of just with like the collective thing. I know that was a long preamble, but
No,
basically just like, yeah, a way to like make the member changing aspect also drive the creative aspect and have it be this like mission focused group, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally, I'm following along, and I appreciate those examples too, because I think it's, especially now, like the world that we exist in, where everybody's attention is fleeting, even especially like, I mean, it's been like that in punk or hardcore, where it's like the band that is like the most popular thing 2 years ago, people are just like, who is that band? Like it
Yep.
churns through so quickly.
Exactly.
And even bands that feel like they're ostensibly on top of the world, there's the realities that come crashing in when it's just like, oh yeah, like I'm making the same amount of money that I would make at like a Starbucks full-time job or whatever, not besmirching a barista's, salary, but like
I don't think that's besmirching a barista. I think it's besmirching Starbucks and how much they're compensating a barista,
That's true. That's true.
Well, it's the same way with how the music industry is able to compensate musicians. Like it should be like catered to people being able to like have a full-time career on it. And it's just, the reality is the only people I know who are able to pay their rent consecutively are either on tour 365 days a year, or they're like filling out like minimum 1,000 cap rooms. And from a younger person's mind, that's like the epitome of success. And it's crazy to think that that's like barely covering like living expenses, especially if you have a family or something.
Totally. Yeah. It's like the Mount Rushmore. And like, I think that the reason why your description hits home to me, especially existing in the scene that we do, where it's like, no one starts it with the idea of like, we're going to make money, we're going to do this thing. Like the ambitions are usually not muted, but the ambitions are reasonable. It's like, get out a 7-inch, get a demo or whatever. If we put out something on vinyl, this feels amazing. And I think the clear-eyed approach of how you want this thing to continue and be creatively fulfilling is the ability to have those members that, yeah, it's like they can't play a show, but it's like, that's fine. We'll be able to find someone else that has participated in some iteration of slow mass and still be able to carry this on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the hammer there with like the having it continue. Like that was like an early part of our discussions when starting the band. Was all of us, it was either our third or fifth or fourth whatever band at this point, and everyone had done extensive touring or whatever, that going into starting this new band there was a lot of intentionality about it existing and it continuing and creating a body of work. So that's like been the goal since day one. So that's definitely driven a lot of decisions, like you were saying, the fluidity of members.
No, I love that. And we'll pull apart some of that thread a little bit later, but focusing on you as a person, I know I'm not going to, dive too deep into the biography just because, I know that you've done obviously similar versions to this in different places, but the growing up in like the Philly, scene, broadly speaking, because that's where I know you kind of cut your teeth as far as independent and DIY music was concerned. How did you discover it, and then what kind of unlocked that for you, whether it was obviously a local band or whether it was something that made you understand the fact that this was different, not only sonically, but just like, oh, there's like a community here, like all this stuff. So hit on those 2 points.
Yeah. So like a big point for discovering DIY underground punk music, like whatever. So I as a kid did the School of Rock program, which has had some negative controversy in recent times with what has come out against the owner about our, me and various other students' childhood experiences with him being like a abusive psycho. But
Yeah.
even with that as, a black cloud hanging over it, there were teachers that were a part of it that were like hugely influential in my life and were, fantastic guides through high school onward, kind of like to not only learn how to treat people in kindness and, like learn and work with others, but open the door to all of that music that you like talked about. So there was kind of 3 teachers that I had that all played in the same band. This band Lithuania from Philly, it featured Eric Slick, who's in Dr. Dog, Dom Angelella, who now plays in Lucy Dacus's band, but he was in Me Without You for a little bit, and Ricardo Lagamazzino, who also plays in Lucy Dacus's band. And the 3 of them were my instructors at various times and would invite me to shows, like would, turn me on to new music, like, or even old music. They're like, here's Fela Kuti, here's This Heat, or here's Hella Lightning Bolt. Like, Dom grew up in Baltimore in like the whole kind of like Wham City scene of stuff with like, Dan Deacon and Double Dagger, No Age, like everything that kind of like revolved around. I don't know, No Age is from California, but like the revolved around like that collective of people. So they were like willing and open, kind of like sharing those things with me and invited me to some, monumental shows. I was actually just talking about one of the shows with Dom like yesterday or the day before, but there was like a show in Philly at this old warehouse called the Ox that was like Lightning Bolt, Piss Jeans, and Double Dagger. And oddly enough, our like booking, our former booking agent, this guy Jeff, booked that show back in like 2010. So like there's this weird like connection of people that just kind of come in and out of your life, and there's like, dots on the map that unite everybody through the past in some weird iteration. But that definitely kind of like introduced me to stuff. And when I moved to Chicago, I just sought that out in a similar fashion.
There's something so special about band merch, because yes, of course, it signals, hey, I like this band and I want you to be aware that I like this band. And then maybe by me wearing this thing will inspire you to listen to the band. And it's just a great way to not only make yourself look cool, because after all, I mean, we're all looking to do that, right? It also supports bands. And that is where our friends at rockabilia.com are stepping in because first of all, they want to give you 10% off your first order. Use the promo code 100 words or less. That's the number 100 words or less. They sell officially licensed band merch from punk, hardcore, metal, mainstream rock, hip hop, R&B. I don't care what it is you're into. You can find something there for you, for your friends, your family. And then the bands get paid because this is officially licensed merch. And that means no bootlegs, none of that stuff you'll see there. And that is why Rockabilia is great. On top of all that, they're run by punk and hardcore kids, independently owned and operated business, and they've been around for 30 plus years. 500,000 items. There's literally no reason you shouldn't go to their website and shop around. And then use the promo code 100 words or less for 10% off your first order. Band merch. It's special. Keep it special. I love that school of rock. Because, I mean, even though something, I mean, broadly speaking, where we're just like, oh yeah, if you're looking at like religion, it's like, if there's bad apples, it's like, yeah, the person can be bad, but it's like School of Rock has a million franchises and that thing may not have been polluted and that's totally fine. And your experience was wholesome, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not to get too into like my negative experiences with like Paul Green, who ran it, like, dude definitely caused me a fair share of like childhood trauma and plenty of close friends in my life, like similar awful experiences that we all kind of had to reckon with in the past couple of years since they were like writing the various articles that came out about the dude. But I can still look back on it being thankful of the people that I met through it, and also like really proud to like know and grow up with these various musicians that went on to do incredible things, like Kayleen from Mannequin Pussy, Gina, who plays in Baroness, like all these people, were like a part of my childhood. So it's, like I said, there's this dark cloud, but at the same time, I'm thankful for like what has come after.
Well, and I like it so much in what you're describing because it is, no matter what, even though many of us are comfortable and completely exist in the digital world, there is the element of human curation, whether it's like someone showing you something or someone telling you something. Cause it's like, yeah, you could listen to, Lightning Bolt and understand somewhat with what is kind of happening, but it's like you need a person to be able to like throw all this stuff at you, see what sticks. And even if it doesn't stick until, 5 or 6 years down the line, you at least had a touch point for that. And you are more apt to check it out because especially you're a young kid and someone who you define as cool is telling you to do the thing. And you're like, yeah, I will. Like, I have no business knowing that much about Hella, but now I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's it. And I just think that's such an important process, especially as people are getting into music and getting into, whether it's like super mainstream stuff or whether it's like, really deep cuts like that. You do need a person to help you, but still let you create your own authorship within that to be like, oh, actually, I don't like this, but I like some of this and try to find more of that, which is like super exciting.
Yeah. 1,000%.
The Chicago experience, I know like you went there for school and you were interested in, recording and all of that. Did the, I guess, recording bug kind of get you? I mean, I know it got you to Chicago, but like, was it interesting in that sort of like School of Rock program where you were just like, I like playing, but like documenting this is also exciting?
Yeah, so I think like prior to like going to college, like, I would just fuck around with GarageBand or whatever and make terrible demos that sound god awful and, should stay buried with the rest of the trash in the world. But I think it was just kind of like an interest based on like other bands that like, I mean, I'd like throughout high school and things were getting into like Fugazi onward, and obviously like Fugazi is a huge inspiration for a lot of people in terms of a true DIY aspect. Now, there's obviously about a lot of privilege in terms of the way they were able to go as far as they did compared to other bands that try to mimic it and don't have the resources, let alone reach that they had. But um, well, to booking their own shows, running their own record label, but also towards the end of their life, like the Red Medicine period onward, like recording a lot of their stuff. So I think there's just like this curiosity about recording oneself. I had gotten into like a lot of like, various weird lo-fi artists like Daniel Johnston recording himself, R. Stevie Moore. This Heat had like a converted like meat packing warehouse in the UK that they turned into a studio that they made all of their records out of. So yeah, I think it was just like a curiosity of like what one could do with those resources on your own when you don't have any resources to begin with.
Totally. You're like, what can and I'm sure you had this experience too. Like another unlock is if you have a band member or someone close to the band that has any sort of remote design skills, where it's like you can put this layout on a shirt and then you're just like, wait, that means we don't have to pay somebody outside of the band. You'll just do this for us and it's cool. And then you start to those little concentric circles start to open up a little bit more where you're like, we can do more on our own.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think for me it was also I knew various people that went to school for like music performance or whatever, where they were studying jazz or something of a similar ilk, and that seemed kind of miserable to me, and I knew that I wanted to study music in some regard, and I think recording was also just kind of like an alternate path to have that be a part of my education.
Oh, totally. No, that's cool. And I like it. Your what you were observing and kind of picking up was, yes, it was attached to, DIY, a scene, broadly speaking, but like just that element of not being so prescriptive where you do. And I'm just going to speak from my own personal experience. Like once I started to get into punk and hardcore, like, I was very myopic. I just focused on those bands, that scene. And I mean, I started to open up my aperture, whatever, 17, 18, working at a record store, whatever. But the point being is that if you start to get exposed to like weird stuff at an early age, then you start to be like, hone in on the things where it's like, oh yes, like I can listen to Tragedy and Earth Crisis and it's totally fine.
I mean, and it's funny that you say that from like a hardcore lens, because in my mind I'm like, it's like the Office meme where they show like two things and they're like, can you tell the difference? And you're like, it's the same photo. Like from an outside point of view, obviously I understand they're completely different bands and sounds, but I'm just like, Tragedy and Earth Crisis. Like I would be comparing like Earth Crisis and Brian Eno if we were going to talk about like completely different stretches,
Yeah. Oh, totally. No. And that's, it's like, yeah, all that stuff, like to your point, to the untrained ear is not going to hear any difference, but then
Yeah.
it isn't until you start to steep yourself and understand as you're picking up these different experiences, like especially, I mean, I'll never forget me personally, like working at a record store and being super into Dashboard Confessional. And then one of my coworkers being like, dude, this guy's a poser. Listen to Nick Drake. And then I was like,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
I was like, what? And I listened to it and I'm like,
getting a
right.
deep education with that one. Yeah.
Totally. Where you just start to pick pieces up and you're like, I can still like what Chris Carrabba does,
Sure.
and I could also like Nick Drake. And then
Yeah.
you start to build that context. But anyway, I just like those influences that you're talking about. It seemed like broaden your scope of being like, what can I do for whatever music I want to pursue? I want to try to have as much control over it as I can within reason.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. And Chicago clearly was a very big jumping ground for you, or playground for you, to be able to, start bands and start to have that experience of booking shows and, getting really involved. What, beyond just the simple fact of like playing music, what brought you to, getting more done in regards to like, working for Kickstand and like booking shows and like the behind the scenes of the music? Not everybody wants to get involved with that aspect, but what drew you to that?
Um, yeah. So the booking job was kind of like an interesting sort of crossroads where I had felt a little burnt out with DIY show booking. Like throughout college, I just was nonstop booking house shows, warehouse shows, like whatever, like all over the place. And then kind of by early 2015 was sort of like hitting a burnout phase. And then I got offered this booking job, and um I think I just saw it as a unique opportunity that like Chicago doesn't have many small non-21 up venues, let alone that many small venues to begin with, even with them being 21 up. Um, that it felt like an opportunity to help like foster that for bands that are trying to bridge the gap between playing house shows and playing venues. And understandably, it could be a bit intimidating where you go from a basement where 40 people feels amazing to playing in front of 40 people in a 300 cap room, and it feels awful. So that job was mainly to start booking this small 100 cap room that I was brought on for. Um, and it wasn't really until the pandemic where I had time like removed from it where I just kind of slowly realized that I didn't want to do that anymore either. I felt burnt out from that too, you know. But that was like
Yeah.
5 year difference.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, no matter what, like when you're working with something that you're passionate about and it is your day job, sometimes it's really hard to be able to divorce those two things and still have an enjoyment for one, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
can I go to a show and not be like, damn, dude, they're really taking a bath on this one. There's like 40 people here. It's $10 a head.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just,
I
yeah,
hated counting people's money like that, you know, like
yeah,
every show I would go to, it would totally the numbers would be running through my head about what this, that, and whatever is worth and blah, 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 and yeah, it was awful, and now it's, like, great when I go to shows where I have an idea of things, but it's not really at the forefront of my mind like it was then.
yeah, absolutely. What's in retrospect, as you're looking at the shows you were booking, it could be small, large, anything in between. What are one or two shows that stick out in your brain that you were either excited to bring to life, happy that it went well? Like, what are some memories that are attached to that time?
Yeah, one of the last shows I booked before COVID was the first June of 44 reunion show in Chicago, so that was super exciting. I had been in touch with Jeff, the guitarist, like, slowly over the course of 2 years at that point, I think, since they announced and did their first shows in Italy back. Um, so the fact that that came to fruition was kind of amazing, and that band is legendary. It's like a bit of a whirl to, like, think of things, like, there's a lot of stuff that without context of, uh there's a lot of stuff without context of other things I could be like, I booked port some of Portrayal of Guilt's first shows in Chicago that no one went to. But,
Cool,
like,
of course.
it's great that that's, like, how I met them and how we became friends, and slowly building them up here, and, there's plenty of things like that of bands that I've booked that have, like, gone on to be ginormous, apparently, I found out recently from, like, reading online, I booked Ethel Cain's first show.
That's amazing.
Okay, so she was supporting Nicole Dollanganger, if you remember that artist.
Yeah.
Um, and she had already done a bit of touring and come through Chicago a couple times. Her booking agent was a friend, hit me up about booking Nicole, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." Like, I honestly had only, like, seen her live. I hadn't really listened to Nicole stuff that much, but I was just like, that sounds like a cool show. Let's do it. And he's like, okay, we'll have this artist, Ethel Cain, like on it. I'm like, okay. I wouldn't have thought anything about it except she became this giant artist in the past like 3 years. And
Right.
then she posted on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it was like a month ago being like, yeah, my first show was in Chicago opening up for Nicole Dollanganger. It's just, and I put 2 and 2 together, like it's nuts. I absolutely wouldn't have thought anything about that show except she just became this giant artist afterwards. And yeah, I have like coworkers and stuff who are like huge fans of her, and I'm like in the back of my mind like this weird
Yeah.
degree of separation that you have from these things.
Life is all about trying to make things more convenient, right? You don't want to go to like 40 different websites and buy one piece of vinyl, maybe a long sleeve shirt from this other one. That is where our friends at evilgreed.com can help save your life. Maybe not like actually save your life, but make your life easier, okay? They want you to save 10% off your first order by using the promo code New Year. 10% off of your first order. That's specific to this show, and it's a limited time offer, so use it right now. Just full stop. Go to the website. Boom. Done. Awesome. What they do is they sell band merch from a lot of cool record labels and specific bands, exclusive vinyl, and it's a very curated list. They don't blow the doors open for everybody. They're like, you know what? We want to work with this band. We don't want to work with this band, not because we don't like them. Maybe they don't like them. That's okay. That's neither here nor there. But they only want the cool, heavy music, merchandise, and records. That's like a literal statement that's on their website. They ship from Berlin, Germany, worldwide. I don't care where you are. The shipping rates to us here in the United States are very advantageous. So hop on that right now. Use the promo code New Year, and it gets you 10% off your first order. And I promise you, if you listen to the show, you will love what they have going on. It makes it convenient. You can order it from one spot and then boom, you're done. You get a bunch of cool stuff. Everybody wins. Thank you very much, evilgreed.com. I know Chicago is also where you started to play in kind of like your first bands, so to speak. I mean, I know you played some stuff in Philly, but like Chicago was a more, I guess, meaningful experience for you as far as recording and all that sort of stuff is concerned. Did you take to playing live shows like right away? I mean, using your School of Rock background, did it come naturally, or was this, were you able to make the connection that like, oh, I feel comfortable, I guess, because I've done some version of this before, or was it a learning process still?
No, I'd say it came pretty quickly. The weird thing about like the School of Rock stuff is, the quote unquote accomplishments from that don't really feel like accomplishments because it was a part of this machine and you're playing, it's like a glorified cover band, so whereas now if, Slow Mass Supporting Me Without You played the TLA in Philly, which is like 1,000 cap room, like that was amazing. That was like the first time my parents got to come out and see us play a proper venue compared to like house shows and stuff. I had played the TLA a handful of times through School of Rock shows, but it like I said, it didn't really mean anything based on like the accomplishments from it. So there was definitely, I would say, maybe a resetting once like playing house shows and weird art spaces and stuff, kind of like being like, oh, this is actually what it's like. This is way more comfortable and feels organic and, how it should be, not this kind of caricature of what a rock band does or something like that. Like,
Of course.
it's hard to explain just because like I don't want to say it like besmirching like any of the people I went through, but it just, yeah, it didn't feel like something that I could view as an accomplishment fully compared to bands that I've done now where it actually is like a from the bottom up creation, grassroots operation.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously a facsimile, and it's attempting to, give you a shading of what it would actually look like. But yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, when you're like Cool. I'm stoked we get to do a Weezer cover. I'm not necessarily stoked. We have to play, Disturbed or something, but like, I'll do it because that's what everyone else chose or whatever.
Yeah, they definitely would have not let us do Disturbed covers. Maybe the current School of Rock, they've got a little more
Got it.
leeway with it. But yeah, it was like
What was the edgiest thing that you remember doing yourself?
edgy.
Or maybe not edgy, but like maybe something you were stoked on. Yeah.
Well, Paul Green really liked Frank Zappa, so he kind of shoved Frank Zappa down everybody's throats.
What a wild thing to
but
shove down kids' throats.
yeah, but I mean, compared to other things that were shoved down my throat as a kid, like I do love Zappa. I think Zappa is absolutely amazing, and another perfect example of like someone whose career has this fluidity in terms of genre and band member construct and sound over time. Like, definitely, a super inspiring artist. That probably has like some of like the edgiest stuff, just because
Sure.
there's some songs like Punky's Whips that kind of like hint at like hair metal artists being like gay for pay and like weird kind of like shit like that.
Sure.
Yeah, that might have been it. Otherwise, there was like some cool things. Like, it did a tour in Europe with the Butthole Surfers in 2008. Toured with like John Wetton from King Crimson, who was like on the like 72 to 74 records of King Crimson.
Wow. And that all came from School of Rock?
Mhm.
Wow. That's wild. I didn't know. I honestly didn't know that there was like any, I guess, touring opportunities connected to the school. That's cool.
So there was this all-star program where if you auditioned, you could be a part of this thing that does like tours throughout the year. So there would be like a winter tour and a summer tour, and then like around the fall or spring, there would be these different like artist tours. So those ones that I mentioned, some others were like John Anderson, the singer of Yes. We did like a tour with him playing like Yes songs.
Wow.
One with Napoleon Murphy Brock, who was one of the saxophonists for Frank Zappa in the 70s. Another one that some friends did was with fuck, I'm gonna mess up his name. The guy who created Metalocalypse and Death Clock.
Yeah. I know you're talking. I can't remember his name either, but yeah.
It just did the thing again. Dang it.
Oh, I can still hear you okay, but
You can hear it through the mic all right?
I can, yeah.
Oh. Well, now it's funny because I hear my voice through my headphones and then you through my MacBook here.
Oh, that's weird. I can't. Let me see if I can control any of your. No, I can't control your settings on my end. So if I can stop recording as well if you want me to.
Let's do that. I'm gonna close out Logic to maybe that. But yeah, the guy who created Metalocalypse and Death Clock, they did like a tour with him, and there was a bunch of crazy things like that. But I think in part why I don't view it as an accomplishment is because I can't hit those people up and be like, hey, what's up, and like try to get like a support tour with like
Right.
some aging musician. It wasn't like a full organic connection, whereas people that I've met, whatever 2008, 9 onward, like from shows, does it then become like actually like people in your life that you help out and they help you out and whatever, so on.
Right. Yeah, it's the what attracts us to this whole weirdo independent music scene is like once you start to feel not only that you can help people, but then people can help you trading shows, putting out records,
Mhm.
whatever. It's like that community starts to take a real shape, and then you start to understand how you can help and fit into it, as opposed to, like you said, just simply a transactional thing where it's just like, well, see you later. Never going to see
Yeah,
you again,
exactly.
which sometimes happens, obviously, in our scene as well. But like you at least have that touch point with a person that can bond you very quickly and then be like, hey, I remember, Dave in Chicago. I can probably reach out to him. He'll probably help me out.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Um, And so then once Slow Mass started to become, more of a focus for you, and what, like you said, like 2015 is kind of when the band started to gig around and
Mhm.
play shows. Um, it always struck me, especially like looking back at the releases that you were doing, where you never, like you said, the commercial appeal, you understood there is a limit. Like, I mean, especially when you're putting out, hour long 99 song like records. Like you're like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
people are maybe not going to follow along with that. But the influences that you were pulling together, it definitely seemed to me that there was a lot of ambition where it's like, we're not just, doing a 4-chord punk rock thing, which is obviously fine, but like there's definitely more concerted effort put towards this. Um, did you feel like you accomplished that, I guess, in your first, couple years? Like, even if you didn't actually execute it, like, did you feel like, hey, I feel like this got put together okay? Or would you kind of consider what you did in the past, year and a half to be more of what you had in your brain back in 2015?
Um, I mean, I think whatever is your most current release, you view as your most realized one, so
Yep.
I mean, I was listening to your interview with Jensen from Iron Lung, and, he talked about some of his earliest releases and how he felt that they were terrible, but he wouldn't wanna change a thing because it was like a documentation of that specific moment in time. So for that, like, I'm very proud of it, and I'd say that there, like, still was, like, a fair amount of, like, broad exploration, at least, like, paving the way for the different avenues that we've explored since then. Like, I mean, our first EP, like, the last song has, like, a whatever 7-minute noise outro on it, that's supposed to be, like, this ode to, like, a specific Sonic Youth song, and, um, our first record has anywhere from flutes and saxophones and vibraphones and all these orchestral instruments sprinkled in around this, like, aggressive, like, post-hardcore music, that yeah, I mean, I look back at it now, happy that all of that stuff was there. I think I see the limitations in what our songwriting was, the way anybody would view their old material, but it's all, it's all like, or like Zappa said, it's one long release, it's everything all links together, it's
It's a
just fun.
continuum.
It's the
Yeah.
continuum, absolutely.
Well, and that's what like I honestly often reflect on certain people and certain bands, whether it's like, Jim Atkins from Jimmy Eat World or Davey Havoc from AFI, where it's like that's their first band. And like the
Yeah.
how wild it is for us to travel alongside of them as they, develop and iterate and build on it. And I mean, some would argue where it's like, oh yeah, Jimmy Eat World, they sound the same as what they did back then. It's like, well, no, they don't. But just that idea of being like this thing that I can do, it doesn't have to be obviously as commercially successful as either of those artists, but like this thing can follow me. And as long as I still feel the creative urge, then, that's why Slow Mass will exist. It's like, because I'm not done saying what I want to say, or my expression isn't done here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I just had enough experiences throughout my life with music where I would hear something and you could tell that it was this true human expression, and there were flaws in it, and it was ugly and not polished and raw, and those various recordings of whatever artists, like, touched me in such a significant way that it it left, an impressionable mark on how I view, you know, creative expression. And we have these, like, conversations, like, in the band a bunch because I'm always the one throwing, like, up absolutely insane ideas, like you said, like the ambient record. There's a that may seem like, this kind of, like, crazy blip, but there was, like, actually, like, genuine there was a genuine, like, thought and construct into its existence. And to go on like a tangent for that,
Please.
do you remember? Oh God, what's the name of that band? They've got Wolf in their name, but they're like a jazzy group that like plays with Nate Smith. Nate Smith. Oh, Wolfpack. Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. So that band Wolfpack, they did that thing. I forget what year where they released a record that was silent, and they told their fans to play it on loop overnight, and it generated like 50 grand or like some crazy stuff in like streaming revenue. And then like Spotify and all those things like pulled it because like it wasn't actually music. Like, okay, so, sure. But it raised an interesting point in my mind about like sleep music. And what I view on that is around 2020 during the pandemic, I started sleeping with like a white noise machine. And on streaming platforms, there's various like sleep sound
So many. Yeah.
sleep sound artists, but they're not really artists. You click on it and it's like some weird like corporation that like makes these different artists and puts it all in different areas, and like their whole point is like the corporation is like a sound bank of whatever, and it's like they'll do like sleep noises and blah 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 and like all this other crap that I thought like, why does sleep music need to be this corporatized thing when there already is ambient music like Brian Eno, William Basinski, Grouper, that is music that I do listen to fall asleep to, and I think like has deep artistic merit in its existence as like, ambient sleep drone music or whatever. So I created that piece, and part of the idea basing off the Wolfpack thing was, what if we could create a piece that was something that people could play in their sleep on a loop, but you look at, whatever Brian Eno's like like music for airports, like the first song is like 18 minutes. That one 18-minute track generates 0.0001 cent.
Yep.
Whereas all these pop songs that are like 2-3 minutes, just keep running and like generate like way more revenue at like a faster rate. So the idea was like, who is Spotify or Apple or whatever to say that me chopping up this hour-long piece into a bunch of minute-long tracks is not an intentional artistic decision? Like, they can't make that call. So I was just like, screw it. Like, let's make something that like every hour generates like 100 songs worth of streams, as like a commentary on the streaming platforms, a commentary on the like fake sleep artists. But it softly backfired where, because I made this weird sleep record, then our Spotify algorithm started suggesting those fake sleep artists as our related artists, because it viewed us as like a fake.
That's what
like,
you're going for, right?
It would be like suggested artists, fax machine noises or something, and you're just like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
So yes, so it was a funny lesson in like doing that.
Right.
Long tangent. This is all to say, like, that is just like a part of like, yeah, the eclecticness of like what is interesting to explore as an artist. If we're making pop music, if we're making ambient music, if we're making, hardcore, like all those things have their unique ways where there is this unpolished, raw, pure expression. And that is a thing that I'm always chasing.
Yeah. I love that. And I appreciate that articulation of that experiment, because it's like, yeah, all people are trying to do within the context of how music is distributed these days is, not trying to game the system, so to speak. Obviously you were trying to do some version of that was actually attached to a meaning as opposed to a robot creating music. But it's like everybody's just trying to figure out the best way to approach someone who should hear the thing, like someone who should hear slow mass should like that. They should be given the opportunity.
Everybody, even to like giant pop stars, like use it to like game the system. Like you see the thing with like whatever Drake records where it's like an hour and a half long, and it's just like crammed with songs. And like the whole point of it is that the more songs you have on the record, the higher possibility of it generating this like larger streaming revenue. And that is the motivator for the creating the record. Like, fuck that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the weirdo that I don't like listening to singles when they roll out on an album. I want to hear the full record. It's like watching a single scene of a movie on YouTube versus like the whole thing. Like, I want the full picture. Like, I want to hear how it was constructed from start to finish. Like, those things are so important to my brain and how I consume music that yeah, it's sad that that has gone away in a large part because this other aspect is treating artists in such an unfair way that people feel they need to like sacrifice this creative desire to survive, even though it's like giant pop stars. Like it's ultimately like everything is based off survival. No matter if you're making, $1 million or $2, it's all survival.
Absolutely. And like you were talking about with the, the recent release and kind of, coming out of the pandemic and sort of, the ability that you guys have now to, play shows where it makes sense and obviously to be strategic about what it is that you're doing. Do you feel like where the band is at now, does it feel like a more, I mean, I know the word mature can mean a lot of different things, but like, do you feel like the, ambitions, I guess, match what the band's purpose is now, where it's like you were talking about earlier, where it's like, we we weren't as good as like musically speaking as we are now because we didn't know how to play our instruments. Like, it is now, I guess, the level of experimentation more dialed in because you're like, I know how to execute this, and not from a like egotistical perspective, but like, I've got a better grasp of what I can actually accomplish versus something that is like so off base, but I'm still going to try it. Or is it still that where you're just like, I don't know how to play this instrument, but we can probably try to figure this out.
That's a funny way to put it. No, I mean, I say, I mean, okay, many times. There's a lot of those blurbs in here.
Totally fine.
I don't look back on our old material as not knowing how to play our instruments. If anything, I feel that every release we put out, along with every show we've played, we've tried to have every presentation of the band at a certain like caliber to us. And it's even to the point that like we've gotten in like arguments with each other about like things that are meaningful to one person and mean nothing to the other. And it's like, and I kind of talk about it as sort of like this intangible effect of, I don't know, like, if you ever saw Neurosis live, there was just something about the impact of what they were doing. And there were so many subtle sounds going around in the background with the bassist or, the keyboardist or one of the guitar parts that you couldn't make out, but the intentionality and the scrutiny to execute it so precisely gave this intangible effect that I feel proud that all of our releases and all of our shows like go through that same microscope to produce that same level of presentation. The way I just look back on the old stuff is just age. When we put out that first record, I was 24 or something like that. I'm trying to remember the year. And now I'm 33. So like my age in terms of what my interests were and what I was trying to accomplish are vastly different, let alone my frontal lobe developing. So it's like, yeah, I just view it in that way in terms of like at 24, that was exactly what I was trying to accomplish, and I feel happy that we were able to accomplish that. Do I want to accomplish that same type of sonics? Not really, but I'm still chasing whatever I am chasing with the same intentionality as I did then. I just now have the years of experience and gained knowledge over the years to apply it to that like creative pursuit.
Totally. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, do you work as a tech now occasionally, or are you teching with Mice and
Uh
Bear, or this was?
oh no, I work in software tech, not like roading tech.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I pivoted career wise just to have something that whatever I was gonna do post booking was I just needed to separate music from my finances, like, and as we were talking about earlier with counting other people's money, like it helped a lot to have my professional life not be tied into my creative life.
Sure. Do those worlds intersect when people that you are working with from a civilian perspective are like, "Oh, dude, you play in a band, Dave? Can I hear it?"
I purposefully don't talk about it to not have those conversations. And then some asshole who's listening to this is gonna like try to like sabotage that, and I will plea with you, stranger, please don't. I I'm thankful for the anonymity that I get to hold between my personal life and my professional life. Um yeah, and it's in part just like what you said there, just like not wanting to have like the conversation. Um
What do you play
well,
next, dude?
well, it's like I also like, would have those conversations with my parents about like when I would come through town and they're like, "Oh, can we come see you?" And I'm like, "Well, it's in like a basement in West Philly and like you're like probably not going to want to climb down the like broken stairs and sit in the back of a basement where you could barely see me." So it's like those conversations are like hard to have. That yeah, it's just not a fun one to have with like coworkers, let alone I don't want to come across like some awkward like constant name dropping if like someone's like mentioning stuff, because like in their mind it could seem like that, but in my mind it's just sort of like this is just a friend I've had for like a decade, and like I don't know. Uh Dear stranger, please don't break that anonymity for me. Please keep those two things separate. I'm
Those two, yeah.
happier. I'm happier that way.
It's like the Ghostbusters, where you don't cross the streams. You keep them separate. Everybody's fine.
You don't cross the streams.
Yeah. The last thing I'll ask is in regards to the fact that you have contained this musical experimentation within the context of slow mass, because obviously there are different sounds that you can evoke. Like, you didn't need to release the sleep stream, as it were, under slow mass. Is there a desire for you to I guess do other projects under different monikers, or is this like just the great repository for all of your musical endeavors?
I mean, like you just said, I like viewing it in the way of the great repository. I mean, there's multiple ways to go about it. There are definitely artists where every time they do something that's a sonic diversion from whatever band it is, they make a new band for it, and then it's like this thing, and then this side thing, and then this little side thing, and then you look at their like Discogs page, and it's just like 50 different bands that all have like one or two like weird tapes released over things. And I commend that, and at the same time, yeah, I look to artists like I mentioned in the beginning, Joan of Arc, Self Defense Family, or even Neurosis, did a similar thing, with how their catalog changed over time, or Zappa, or King Crimson, or whoever else, where humans evolve. I think people's stubbornness to have an artist sound the same way over a long period of time is absolutely insane. The only way that a band will sound the same over their duration is if their duration is literally like 2 years or something like that.
Right.
Like a band like Gulch or whatever, like one EP, one LP, a couple 7 inches, boom, done. It's like, cool. That's an encapsulation of like what that band sounded like. Now, what would have the Gulch record sounded like in 2036, if they kept being a band? I would hope it wouldn't sound the same. I would hope that it would be like some continued evolution of it. And I think that people shouldn't be afraid with their sonic exploration to, use the same name. It's not like you change your personal name when you're going through like whatever different stuff, you know? So if it's like the same people in it, like screw it. Just have it be a part of, as you said, that great repository. And I am also fully aware that it's a way to kind of shoot yourself in the foot, because then you have people who are discovering your band and they'll see, oh, here's this whatever post-hardcore, slowcore like song, great, amazing. And then you scroll down and then it's just like white noise with synthesizers. It's like, you know, and like a 1 minute burst from that ambient record, you know, and then they go back and then it's like a post-hardcore song. Like, I totally get how it is maybe not the smartest commercial decision, but that type of stuff just lights my brain on fire and makes me like excited about the endless possibilities of what it means to be a band.
Thank you very much, Dave, and his manager, Jordan, who is a longtime listener of this podcast. And she manages a bunch of bands, and it's really cool to see people kind of grow up and grow professionally in ways that is, it's really cool. So thank you very much. And like I said, check out Slow Mass. Very, very good. Next week is, I'm kind of on the sort of, you know, new adjacent band tip this month in particular. I have Tyler Washington from a band called Exide, who just released a spectacular record on Sharptone. And he also plays drums in Foreign Hands and is just a great guy. He's also a producer, mixer, recording engineer. Great dude. Had to have him on the show because the new Exide record is super good. Was very impressed by this thing. So that's what we're doing next week. Until then, please be safe, everybody.